Welcome to this special edition of the TDI podcast series, Suits and Boots, brought to you as part of TDI's strategic partnership with Mining Indaba 2025. I'm Elizabeth Arnott, responsible mining consultant at TDI, and I'm joined today by three representatives from different parts of the mining industry who will be speaking at this year's Mining Indaba event. Over the course of this series of special edition podcasts, we'll be discussing the key themes of this year's event. Today's topic is adopting game-changing technology, and we'll be talking about how to bring digital effectiveness to the forefront of mining in Africa, understanding technology's role in improving health and safety and sustainability, and ensuring that Africa's mines and workforces don't get left behind in the technology-oriented world. I'm delighted to be joined today by Professor Glen Nwaila. Glen recently transitioned from being the director of the Wits Mining Institute to professor of economic geology, machine learning, and deputy head of School of Geosciences at Wits University. He is also director of CORS, the African Research Center for Ore System Science. Glen has more than 19 years of experience in academia, the mining industry, and in professional advisory consulting services. Bramley Maetsa. Bramley is the IT Digital Innovation Enablement Lead at Sasol. He has 18 years of experience in IT with a background in consulting, product development, digital transformation, and IT service management across various geographies. His current work includes developing use cases for AI-driven cybersecurity management, supply chain automation, employee safety, and digital transformation operations. And finally, Derick Moolman. Derick is the CEO of Stone3, an applied industrial AI solution business focused on the mining industry. Derick is also the chairman of Stone3 Impact, an NPO focused on STEM education for children, and the chairman of CubeSpace, a satellite technology company. Thank you all very much for joining us today. The mining industry in Africa is undergoing a significant transformation as data-driven approaches and artificial intelligence, AI, begin to take center stage. Smart mines that leverage AI and connectivity to optimize processes and make data-driven decisions bring with them the potential to revolutionize the mining landscape on the continent. But what are the specific opportunities? How can the mining industry take advantage of those opportunities? And what could mines in the future look like in Africa? Derick, let's start with you. Can you tell us a bit more about some of the tech that's available now and its potential applications in African mining? What are the benefits it can bring?
Thanks, and good morning, Elizabeth. I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes from William Gibson that said, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." So I think I'm going to focus on proven technologies that are available but still needs more adoption as opposed to promising but still operationally unproven technologies. Let's begin with the why, and therefore the business case or the benefits before technologies, because these need to direct the technology choices that we make. And the typical benefits that we can expect by enabling technologies include increased recovery, especially in the concentrator, throughput, for example, in crushing and grinding, uptime of critical equipment. So these are all revenue increase opportunities without significant capex investment. Benefits on the OPEX or cost side include things like reducing energy costs, reagent costs in the flotation plant. And then, of course, sustainability and workplace safety present other important benefits. Optimization of the full value chain presents a lot of potential benefit with big data analytics, but it is still an ambitious work in progress, at least in my opinion, just based on all the realities in the space. The technologies that enable these benefits that I mentioned, or these potential benefits, are the following. I have time only to mention a few, but I cannot overemphasize the importance of understanding the problems with domain knowledge and good engineers first, and working the business cases before resorting to technology investment decisions. So I'm kicking off with a critical enabler for AI and related topics like big data analytics and automation. And it follows logically that these initiatives are only as good as the data that they obtain. And in this context, it's a very different industry dynamic compared to, say, financial services, retail, and telecoms, where relatively speaking, you obtain data on a silver platter compared to a industry like the mining industry. So solving hard measurement problems with modern smart sensors is already applied at scale, especially those that make use of industrial machine vision, where the switch from conventional to deep learning AI image processing has provided a step change in complex environments. Now, analyzers for metals concentration are important too, whether it's XRF-based or spectrometry-based. And to measure your money makers is to know, right? Another good example of an established technology, especially in other industries, that the mining industry can benefit more from is advanced process control, or APC for short. It has for decades been proven in especially the oil and gas industry, as I'm sure Bramley will confirm, with gross margins of 3.5% or more increases. And it has already delivered similar benefits in mining at early adopters, but it still has a lot of adoption opportunity and potential in this industry. Now, of course, Elizabeth, you referred to AI, and this list is not complete without AI. And while generative AI is all the rage currently, it needs to be said that AI is not new and that it has been around since the 1950s, and that branches of it, like machine learning applications, have started finding their way into this industry decades ago, before AI recently became cool. But to be clear, the potential of Gen AI applications with large language models is huge because of its power with context, agentic computing, and another industry sort of lingo is test time compute reasoning, but it needs more time to really establish itself operationally. And then, of course, robotics is an important one for the list. There are many applications in various stages of adoption and potential applications for robotics. For example, in autonomous haul truck fleets, that's already well established. And drones used in asset or safety monitoring, whether it's the flying or the walking variety, like the Boston Dynamics robots. And then I'm going to conclude for now mentioning predictive analytics for critical equipment monitoring in asset performance management to proactively avoid equipment failure. That is well adopted in other industries and to a lesser extent so in mining.
Thanks so much, Derick. Your first quote there was really interesting and I think well placed. The one about the future already being here, it's just not readily available. That really made me think about, the significant difference we see throughout the mining spectrum, right? From the artisanal and small scale miners who were still trying to move over to things like mercury-free processing technology, all the way through to the very large scale mines that are using the most advanced AI technology currently available. So it's quite interesting and quite a vast difference. And I guess with that, Bramley, what are your perspectives on how data and AI are transforming the mining industry across the value chain?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Maybe before I get into the details, let me just share a bit about what Sasol does. And of course, today we're talking about an industry that is centuries old. And Sasol has been in business for almost a century today. And we are a customer-centric organization that sources different feedstocks to produce chemical and liquid fuels. We primarily use coal. And again, coal is from our own investments, our own mines. We use gas from our own gas fields. And we augment this feedstock with crude oil. We use patented technology to produce the byproducts that I spoke about, which is a clear focus today with renewables and clean fuels. Now, with that said, I would argue that, for a period of almost a century, Sasol has been producing data. We produce data in the way we mine today. If you were to go to Secunda, you will find that we have, if you like, a digital twin, but it's essentially a control room that when you get in there, you will have visibility of coal as it comes in to depots. We have put in scanners, we've put in online analyzers to actually have a good view of the coal quality that's coming from different mines. We also have built forecasting models, stochastic models, which is really very good for some of our engineers in that space to really understand when is the right time to schedule. On the people side, we have invested in OneHR is a system that really helps us to streamline and manage the employees. And the focus there for us is on safety. We are applying models to try and understand behavioral issues that are related to safety. The other focus in that space is really making sure that our equipments, we have a lot of devices, whether you are talking about devices that detect gas in our mines. Some of these are not integrated. We are focusing a lot on investing in networks to make sure that there is that connectivity.
Thanks so much for that. So, Glen, what are some of the advances in machine learning and numerical modeling technology that are currently being applied to the mining industry?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Elizabeth, and glad to be participating in this podcast with Derick and Bramley. The first thing that I want to say is that we are living in an era that I call hyper-innovation era, where the rapid pace of technological advancements leaves very less room to test, validate, and adapt new products and solutions before implementation. And this, if you were to look into it, creates a pressing need for a robust ecosystem where these innovations can be tested and optimized. And I believe that universities, for an example, in collaboration with the mining industry and service providers, are quite uniquely positioned to provide such platforms, enabling new technologies to mature in a controlled manner, yet realistic environment. However, if we are to speak of data-driven strategies and AI in mining, it is not merely about implementing technology or strategies. It's about managing change effectively. And change management must be at the forefront of these strategies, ensuring that people, processes, and technologies are seamlessly integrated to drive sustainable transformation. When it comes to my discipline itself, which is spatial data analytics and machine learning, I think we are at the stage now where we're unlocking very unprecedented opportunities in the mining industry. And these technologies enable us to move beyond just static annual updates for things such as mineral resources and reserves that we typically used to do once a year. But AI has now enabled us to do this now either on a daily basis or weekly basis. But on top of that is mainly propagation of uncertainty and how to manage uncertainty in different systems. So with this in mind, I'll give you an example to say that each and every operating mine, whether it's for coal or precious metals or gold or copper or anything, they collect thousands of samples per day from the phase where they are producing or from platforms where they are producing. And all this data have to be analyzed in the lab, and you have to wait for a number of days for you to get results. And by the time you get results, it's mainly a post-mortem analysis that you have to do. But with the advent of AI, we are able to do near real-time analysis and move beyond interpolation on the data that we have and start incorporating predictive algorithms that we use for uncertainty modeling and production variability modeling. And in one instance, to close off on this particular topic, it's where there were issues with certain elements that were deporting into smelters. So moving into concentrator plants in flotation and deporting further into the smelters. And the issue there was, how do we ensure on a real-time basis or near real-time basis, can we apply AI for predictive maintenance as opposed to do post-mortem analysis of what have happened? And AI has assisted one of the companies that we have been working with to ensure that whatever goes into the smelters, all its properties and so forth are known beforehand, and we will focus them using AI and different methods. But for this, it simply means that you need an ecosystem where this technology can be harnessed and developed. And I believe that universities offers far much a cheaper option, collaborating, of course, with the mining industry, as I have said, governments, and together with people who are providing services.
Thanks so much for that very thoughtful answer. Derick, are there applications of this type of technology in other industries from which parallels can be drawn? What are the potential cross-industry applications that could be explored here?
Yes, Elizabeth, I think as a case in point, what Bramley mentioned present various good examples of what's been applied at Sasol and that can be applicable in the mining industry as well. For example, these remote operating centers and also using this type of technology for workplace safety. And I couldn't agree more with Len that often the constraint is not the technology, but the people and the process that we need to wrap around it to get adoption. So 3 of the shortest and lowest risk avenues that I've personally experienced of that give us realistic pathways to quantifiable value in this industry and that have matured in other industries include the following. I've already firstly mentioned APC, or Advanced Process Control. What's different about APC in mining today compared to even a few years ago is the advent and growing realization and body of evidence of the value that smart sensors are adding to these systems, enabling increased recovery in concentrators in the range of 2 to 5%. And, that becomes a bottom line benefit. It's like increasing your revenue by 2 to 5% without a significant CapEx investment. And I've seen throughput benefits of 10% in crushing and grinding using this technology that make use of these sensors. So likewise, these new measurements also enable a new set of analytics in remote operating centers that assist with more proactive human-assisted operational interventions that can't be implemented only in an automated way, for example, by APC. I've mentioned the predictive analytics. Now, predictive analytics for asset performance management can increase uptimes in the order of 2 to 5%. And I've worked in the oil and gas, the power and the aerospace industries in the earlier part of my career. And this technology is well proven in those industries. And there's a lot of adoption opportunities still in the mining industry for that. And then I'm going to conclude for now. Remote monitoring and diagnostic centers with actionable advisories to make widely distributed operations more efficient and to bring all to a similar high benchmark, which also helps with accommodating top new talent in cities where people want to live. And, this speeds up continuous improvement. Now, this one is more difficult to get right, and the benefits are harder to quantify. And to Glen's point, there's a lot of people, process, and technology that you need to orchestrate to get this right. But ultimately, there might be more value here than in various of the other technologies that we mentioned.
Thanks so much for that, Derick. Bramley, we've talked about the benefits of adopting new AI-driven technology. What are the hurdles that need to be overcome to aid the mining sector in adopting some of the technologies that we've spoken about?
There's a few points here that I can point out. And one, as I mentioned in my opening statements, that the mining industry has been generating data. But to get quality and access to that data is not that easy. So that for me is the first hurdle. Derick, we had a workshop in December with one of our senior vice presidents exploring some of the use cases in our plant in Sasol, especially when it comes to asset predictive maintenance. And one of the things that she mentioned was there is a lot of data lying around, but making decisions on that is not that easy. As I said, most of this data is available in silos. So certainly data quality and access, it is one of the hurdles. The other one that I think is potentially going to be big going forward is the skills gap, right? If you were to look at the current workforce, we obviously have folks that have been here 30 years or so. A good chance now is that the new folks that are coming in, they are digital natives. These are the folks that potentially want to use remote controls and things like that. So with older population that we have, upskilling that workforce in areas like data analytics or just general data skills is I see as one of the hurdles. As they say, with generative AI today is no longer about the answer. Answers are out there. It's really about the question that you ask, which means that things like prompt engineering becomes key if we really want to leverage AI to solve business problems. As we connect smart sensors, as we bring all these equipments that are generally used to be offline, then you're going to have a challenge with cybersecurity. So that's another hurdle. And certainly from our side, we're spending a lot of investments on cybersecurity, especially now with the strategy where we really driving convergence of OT and IT environment. The last one that I wanted to point out is this idea of regulatory and policy framework. I think it's going to be key. Mining industry is extremely regulated. So making sure that there is a clear policy from the government side of things, and of course making sure that there is a clear guideline, especially when it comes to responsible AI from the organizations. That is going to be one of the areas that we focus on. We certainly, in the past 8 months, have built a policy from Sasol perspective, and we're driving adoption throughout the organization. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Bramley. Very interesting, especially around those last points regarding the importance of the alignment of policy and AI and how important that will be going forward. Glen, when it comes to data specifically, what are the potential benefits to companies and governments within Africa of investing in data-driven initiatives?
Thank you for this question. I think it's one of the most important ones. And in the past, just a couple of years ago, or not so long ago, we had one of the largest pandemics, as you know, COVID-19. And this is where an example of data or the importance of data comes in, where most of the companies that were not really looking into data-driven initiatives started struggling a lot to make profits. And in mining, which is mainly human-intensive in terms of labor and so forth, you have no choice than to start utilizing the data that you have spent so much money collecting. So I'd like to say data-driven initiatives are quite transformative for both companies and governments. And for the private sector, investing in data analytics can improve our overall mining and metallurgical processes, such as plant recovery factors, optimize production processes, and reduces operational costs. Depending on where you are working, people are speaking of 3 to about 25% margins based on the operation that you are running. So for an example, in one project, which was a platinum group metals here in South Africa, they had an issue of saying that they have different ore compositions. So they are mining in the same mine, but the composition of the ore is quite highly variable. And the problem is this: if you send this to any form of a recovery plant and you make an assumption that your ore is quite homogeneous, it means you tend to lose a lot of material. You tend to lose a lot of the metals that you are supposed to recover. And using data from the past and together what they are actually processing, AI strategies has actually made a significant improvement that company has increased its profitability by over 12%. Whereas in the case for governments, the value lies in transparency, sustainability, and attracting investment. A prime example is South Africa's first mineral prospectivity map that myself and a couple of colleagues have created. So in South Africa, for many years, we had all this geological data from the Council of Geosciences, also coming from private players, but there has never been a combined integrated map for critical minerals exploration. But using data that comes from government, because these are quite expensive missions that only governments are capable of funding together with the private sector, we're able to produce the very first South Africa's national critical mineral prospectivity map. So in short, I would like to say that when you prioritize data standardization and integration at a government level, these tend to unlock greater value that goes beyond what we initially thought we'll have, such as navigating where potentially to explore, but it provides more opportunities of some of the future values of where we can go. But not only that, this also create a new room for investors who may never have been to a particular country to also see and decide based on the data that is available. The key issue is the following, is that we use different instruments for data collection. And for that particular reason, there's always an issue in terms of the quality of the data first. And secondly, in terms of compatibility of the data, to say that can you merge one data from one particular region to the other in order to ensure that the data is utilized for AI and related aspects of decision making. But more recently, again, with the assistance of AI and together with the skilled personnel who are running these particular systems, it is now possible to understand the quality or different criteria or assigning different matrices on the quality of the data itself, so that for downstream usage, we are not debating whether our results are incorrect or correct, but we're debating to say that at what level of confidence can we accept a particular product that comes from data sets.
Thanks so much for that, Glen. Building on that a bit, are there any other hurdles that you anticipate?
Yes, there are a number of hurdles. So adopting data-driven AI technologies is not without its challenges. First, there is a technological infrastructure gap in many mining operations, especially here in Africa, if you want to think of that. And anyone who tends to speak of big data analytics, you will hear them speaking of things such as volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value of that particular data. And this requires very robust systems to process, store, analyze information at scale. So many mines tend to lack the digital backbone needed to handle these large complexities and data sets. So what you tend to find is that new mines are able to integrate technology quite well, whereas very mature mine is very difficult to allocate capital on digitalization strategies and so forth. But on top of that, there is the issue of labor. Do you say that you prioritize new upcoming professionals who may not have the necessary experience, but they are quite knowledgeable when it comes to digital systems, or you also have the reskilling and upskilling programs that are customized for the employees that have been with the organization for longer. Secondly, the human element poses a significant hurdle. So there tend to be a lot of resistance to change, particularly when introducing unfamiliar technologies, because people tend to think that this technology is going to take their jobs or anything like that. So effective change management strategies must address the resistance by involving stakeholders very early when you are still on a conceptual stage, offering targeted training based on the levels of employees and demonstrating clear benefits that will help the organization and the employees themselves. And finally, data quality and availability remain the barriers. Inconsistent data collection methods, which you tend to find, including in the same organization, coupled with a lack of standardization, because we are still all at the stage now of digital transformation, whereas other companies may be slightly ahead. So with this, there is a lot of suboptimal AI outcomes that leads to AI-related projects to be terminated early, and some companies starting to lose appetite before realizing the full potential of this. So addressing these hurdles requires an integrated approach that combines investment in infrastructure, capacity building of your internal staff members and those that you're going to be recruiting, and strong leadership willing to champion a digital transformation. In some organizations, they have already started including or creating new portfolios that mainly look at OT, operational technology, so that it does not get mixed up with IT, which is information technology, and the two must work hand in hand to ensure that any data-driven strategy is fully realized.
Thanks for those reflections, Glen. Bramley, turning to you, how do you think AI or data-driven strategies or solutions can help African countries navigate towards a more sustainable future?
Yeah, so maybe before I get into this question, and Glen, thank you for your reflection. One of the things that I've found in Sasol in particular is that we find it easy to build POCs, but we struggle to scale those POCs, moving them into production. So Derick, I think this is one area that we can look at collaborating. In terms of the question that you're asking, and I think we can look at this potentially with 4 aspects here. One is in the area around resource management, and I think AI can be used to optimize how we manage natural resources. The other example that I can give that I've seen from recent conference that I attended in Morocco is how we manage waste. AI has shown powerful models that you can use to manage waste and reduce environmental impact. Of course, Sasol, as you know, we spend a lot of resources and money in the communities that we operate. We see in the area of social impact that AI can be used in that to address social challenges. In fact, just to give an example, we already working on a project called Digital College, which it's really a virtual environment that we'll be creating, interacting with communities and getting folks that want to be skilled in the areas of AI, data science to use Sasol's Digital College. And of course, the last area is around environment protection. We're spending a lot of time in the areas of ESG and applying technology to monitor the environments that we operate in. As you know, there's a clear change in the environment. And I think our focus on renewable and sustainable energy that will set us in the right space.
Thanks so much, Bramley. Very interesting, especially around how AI can make such an impact for waste management, which is just such a relevant topic in the African context. So thanks for that. Derick, turning over to you, how open to change do you think organizations within the mining sector are within Africa when it comes to the adoption of new technology?
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's a interesting question. My grey hair, I believe, is the result of serving this and other industries with some of these technologies in several countries for more than 25 years. So with that purview, I've seen technology adoption and the differences in several regions. And with the benefit of hindsight, unequivocally, organizations in Africa, some of which have become top-tier global organizations, are every bit as progressive as their counterparts in the rest of the world. And in some areas, actually lead the way to make these fit into a operational context for the longer term. So it's just important to realize that the job is not done after the implementation of one of these technologies. That is where a lot of the hard work starts, when you want to scale these things across the enterprise. And to Bramley's point, to take it beyond POCs. And I'm optimistic that we'll see a lot more pragmatic adoption and benefit before I completely lose my...
Thanks, Derick. Glen, is Africa's workforce ready to adopt to new digital or AI-driven approach? What is required to ensure that today's miners and those of the future have the skills that are necessary?
That's quite an important question you have asked here, given that Africa still holds one of the youngest workforces on a continental scale. But when you start zooming in into different operations, you will notice that most of the people who are working in the phase itself of production are quite mature in age, averaging plus or minus 44 years old. So for this particular reason, I believe that Africa's workforce is brimming with potential. So there is a critical need to align skills and the demands of the digital mining future. So currently, many miners do lack exposure to advanced AI and analytics. But we have an advantage here that compared to 50 years ago or 20 years ago, most people are aware of what is happening when it comes to digital transformation space. So creating a skills gap that must be bridged over time. And I believe that this is where universities can play a pivotal role in addressing this gap by integrating some of these digital technologies, data science and modeling type of techniques into different curricula that is being taught at the university. But in parallel, I believe that industry players must invest in continuous professional development because this is where much of the professionals get more exposure on a particular disciplines. So initiatives such as mentorship programs and on-the-job training can ensure that employees acquire both theoretical knowledge that they require and practical skills to do things. Because when it comes to the 21st century mining, it's not only about what you know, but it's what you can do with the knowledge that you have. So collaborative partnerships between academia, industry, and governments can create a tailored training ecosystem that enable the workforce to adapt and thrive actually in an AI-driven environment. But ultimately for me is the preparation of the workforce itself. It is not just a technical skill that needs to be done. It's a culture of change and innovation and adaptability that needs to be fostered. And I believe that by empowering individuals with the right tools and mindset, we can ensure that Africa's mining sector is future ready so that the younger people who are joining the industry itself are not discouraged by seeing how things work when we are not fully digitalized. But there is that cross mentorship, if you want to call it. Some people call it reverse mentorship, where somebody who is more experienced can provide knowledge of how things work on surface, and the younger people can also impart knowledge on how some of the digital technologies work. And this can bridge the gap to ensure that Africa is more than ready to face the 21st century mining challenges.
Thanks, Glen. Very, very interesting. Bramley, what do you think the smart mine of the future could look like in the African context?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question for me, being a techie and being someone that is in innovation. Going to give an answer that it's almost a dream, right? Is that I see a mine that is highly automated, where autonomous vehicles are used. I see a mine where employees are safe, that in dangerous areas we send robots instead of actually sending people. And I think, to Prof's point, we're probably going to be forced by the type of employees that are coming in. As I said, these are folks that are Generation Z. They are highly connected. They want to click, things work. So that actually leads me to the next point, that the future of mines will be data driven, and I also believe it will be inclusive. There was a study, and I'm sure it was particularly one of the oil and gas company that adopted AI and various other emerging technologies in how they drill resources. And with that, they found out that a lot of folks that applied for those jobs actually happen to be women. So I see the smart mine that is going to create job opportunities that will be able to, diversify the working environment.
Thanks so much for that, Bramley. And finally, to end with, could each of you share one example of a success story or case study where AI has produced tangible benefits to a mining operation, whether this be to increase efficiency, improve health and safety, increase resource recovery, or just to reduce costs?
So Elizabeth, I'll go first. I'm thinking about a copper concentrator in Southern Africa that has recently benefited to the tune of several percentage points increase in recovery from using advanced process control to, for starters, just stabilize the concentrator. And that will now install real-time froth and pulp smart sensors that will further increase this benefit with power levels optimization. And that will also enable remote monitoring and diagnostics analytics to reduce the non-producing froth states. And in a later phase, an industrial AI using a GPT-like technology will assist the operators with non-obvious advisories, a bit like an AI virtual expert metallurgist. And all of this is monitored from a remote operating center in Cape Town by what I call industrial data scientists with metallurgical background. Thanks
so much, Derick. Bramley, I suppose we'll turn to you next.
Yes. In our case, there was a few case studies. Elizabeth, I must say, Sasol has been on AI journey for the past, from the 80s, actually. As Derick said, AI has been around since the 70s. We apply AI a lot in how we manage reliability of our equipment. In those cases, we have seen the economic benefits. The recent study was in the works environment, where we managed to improve efficiency there by almost 25%. So that's just one example that I can share right now.
And last but certainly not least, Glen?
I can think of quick examples. The first one, which most people may be aware of, is South Deep Gold Mine, which is owned by Gold Fields here in South Africa, that installed what we call the Integrated Intelligent Remote Operating Center. The reason I'm mentioning them is that they have managed to enable us to do two things. The first one is transmission of GPS signal underground, which has always been a challenge to locate people precisely where they are. But with these, given that they have the infrastructure, we came with a technology that enables them now to transmit GPS signal. The second aspect of mentioning that example is the fact that we can also do what I call DAS, or distributed acoustic sensing, which allows us to explore mineral deposits in the subsurface using existing tunnel infrastructure. The second example is Sibanye-Stillwater, which has been quite big when it comes to circular economy, or what I call mine waste valorization, where they have used a combination of freely available remote sensing data together with smart sensors to analyze the quantities of metals that are sitting in their different tailings. And these have led to them to actually start large initiatives that are actually recovering metals from what was considered mining waste. And at the moment, this brings a lot of value within the platinum belt side and also from the gold side, because companies such as DRD Gold are also using similar type of mechanisms. So this shows the value of AI on a short-term and long-term basis in terms of adding value to the company and the portfolio itself.
Thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for providing your very valuable insights today. This concludes our Suits and Boots episode. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you all at Indaba next month.